Welcome to Mojo Motivation and Mental Health, where we have conversations that change lives. I'm Mike Orlowski. Before we start, if you are struggling right now with thoughts of suicide, if you need help immediately, please reach out. Call or text 988, the Suicide and Crisis Hotline. If it's an emergency, call 911. You're not alone. Help is available and you matter. If this show helps you or someone you might know would benefit from it, please like and share this episode. The more visibility we get, the more people we can help. Today's conversation is about what happens when you lose everything and choose to build something that prevents others from experiencing that same loss. My guest is Jeff Johnston, founder of the Brightn app, a mental health advocate, and someone who survived what most people couldn't imagine surviving. Jeff lost his son, Seth, to a fentanyl overdose. He lost his wife, Prudence, to alcoholism. He lost his mother all in a short span of time. And instead of calling these losses tragedy, Jeff calls them something else, preventable and predictable. Because Jeff believes those losses could have been different if the right support had been in place upstream, before crisis, before addiction spiraled, before it was too late. So Jeff built Brightn, an AI-driven mental health app that focuses on building resilience before people reach crisis. And here's what makes Brightn different. It integrates three pillars that no one else is combining: health, wealth, and purpose. Because Jeff knows from experience that mental health doesn't exist in isolation. Financial stress feeds mental health crisis. Lack of purpose creates emptiness. You can't fix one without addressing all three. We're going to talk about how Jeff has transformed unimaginable pain into a tool that's helping thousands of people build the resilience he wishes his family had. Jeff, thank you very much for being here. I'm really sorry for your losses.
Hey, Mike, I appreciate the comments and the empathy and the compassion that exudes from your voice when you speak. It's obvious that your podcast is unfortunately in demand. It'd be nice not to have a mental health focused podcast because everyone was flourishing, but the reality is we're not just struggling, are exponentially getting worse too. And
I
that's
agree.
where I think it was time for someone like me, an average dad in Iowa, to draw a line in the sand and say enough's enough. I mean, we need to start looking at so many different multifaceted attacks to confront this epidemic of, lack of human flourishing. People are really
I
hurting right
agree.
now for many, many reasons, which we can navigate ins and outs of those. But yeah, I'm honored to be here. I enjoy these conversations, but not as the word enjoy may mean to some people, but it's cathartic for me. It's
Hmm.
part of my therapy. Like, having an hour conversation with you is worth its weight in gold for me personally, because I'm able to share the story Seth and Prudence can continue to live on, and your listeners and followers can pick up a few nuggets of wisdom or some motivation to start that project they've been waiting to start. So the story, even though it's going to start off probably pretty dark and pretty sad, I want to end it, as sure as you do, with a bang. And we all can contribute our small part into improving the lives of others, and it really starts with improving our own lives first.
I couldn't agree more. These conversations are uplifting. I enjoy them as well. And it is a unique way of using the word enjoy because
Yeah,
most things folks think, well, how can you enjoy it? But at the end of the day, you are lifted up. I'm energized. I'm
yeah,
enthusiastic because it benefits my mental health and usually the other person I'm talking with as well. And we know that there's someone out there that needs to hear it.
right. Yeah, I've been on the other end of that. In my bouts of struggling, which has been frequently, I go to podcasts like yours. I
Hmm.
go to books like Eckhart Tolle or Sam Harris, or books that I like to read, introspection and challenging my preconceived thoughts of what I thought suffering was, and pain, and the narratives, the stories that we tell ourselves. You're always free. You're always free to tell yourself a new story about your past. And why is it that some people can't do that and others can? And I think my curiosity is, where's that inflection point? Where's that crossover? Where is that thing that gets people to right that sinking ship? And again, that's where the idea with the app, and we could talk about that later. But so yeah, that's gonna drive me till I die, Mike, is just keep learning, searching, identifying the problems and
Hmm.
less focus on the symptoms, because that's where our society's all focused on is symptoms. Everything in healthcare is based on putting out fires, and very, very little is based on prevention. So when I had to pick a lane to kind of go down to be an advocate, to me, it was treatment was crowded and ineffective. And I'm not a clinician. I'm a finance guy. It's like I didn't have any background in healthcare. So what I can bring to the table is wisdom and experience of a family that, I lost half my family during this fight and almost myself. And so that's a subset of skills and experience that I think a lot of clinicians can't bring to the table. So all hands on deck, man.
Absolutely. And let's maybe start a little bit about your story. You've lost your son, obviously, Seth,
Yeah.
to fentanyl overdose. Wife Prudence was an alcoholic, and you lost her to that. And then your mother in a short period of time. And like you said, struggled with yourself, which I know I've dealt with that part. Talk to me a little bit about that history and your experience through that time.
Well, the simplest place to start is 2016. That's probably where everything to me that proverbial fork in the road happened. Up until that point, I had done wealth management for my whole career. I was a finance major in college. I played 2 sports in college. I was competitive, kind of that type A alpha male type, at least I thought
Yeah.
I was. In hindsight, I wasn't, but I thought I was. And, I wanted to make money. I went to college, when the Wall Street, the movie came out with Michael Douglas and Charlie
Oh yeah.
Sheen. And so, greed is good. That whole thing was my mantra for many years. And actually I had attained at age 50. So in 2016, I was 50. I had
Hmm.
reached pretty much, Mike, what I aspired to achieve. I married the love of my life, beautiful woman, 9 years younger than me, had 3 boys, Seth, Ian, and Roman, had a 5,800 square foot house. I had a sports car. I traveled to Europe. It's like checking all the boxes. Like I could sit on my deck and have a cigar and a glass of wine and say, man, you did it. However, and this is probably with most perceived successful people, there are cracks.
Hmm.
There are holes. There's leaks. And in our family, it started with our son Seth. I shouldn't say started with, but I think it got exacerbated by Seth's issues.
Hmm.
And Seth was 15. He's our oldest son. And the teachers kept saying that he wasn't paying attention at school and he was disruptive. And he'd look out the window and wasn't thinking about algebra or whatever. And I'm like, well, that sounds like any 15-year-old
Yeah.
white
Neither was
blooded,
I.
red blooded boy. We're
Right.
not thinking about algebra. I'll tell you that.
No.
Why that was presented as troublesome and why that was presented as, like a disease mindset, I always still struggle with that, but I fell for the trap. I listened to the teachers, took him to see somebody. That's what you do when something's on fire,
Yeah.
right? Well, the truth
Yeah.
was Seth wasn't on fire. He wasn't broken. He was just going through normal things that every 15-year-old does throughout the world.
Hmm.
And in today's world, if you don't fit this certain narrative, you're considered different. And so I took him to the doctor and, a very short amount of time in the hamster wheel, we walked out with a bottle of Adderall and this very convenient stamp on his forehead said attention deficit disorder. I'm like, whatever. I know what it is. I know what it is. I have it. Hell, I'm 60 now, but at the time I was 50, I'm like, I have it. I never took anything. My dad was a doctor. He told me it was a superpower. I grew up when kids were taking Ritalin. And we just called each other a spaz. That's what it was when you were a hyper kid. You were just a spaz.
I remember those days.
Yeah. So it's like,
Yeah.
now I'm in a doctor's office with a bottle of Adderall. I was like, what happened? What happened? And he took the Adderall and that was the beginning of the end. He started abusing it, selling it at school, drunk driving, breaking and entering, got into marijuana. Alcohol was heavy during this time,
Hmm.
cocaine, and then he went to prison. So from 15 to 23, that was Seth's life. Prior to that, he was like any other teenage kid in the world,
Hmm.
specifically in the Midwest here in Iowa. Released from prison, I get a call from my lawyer. I'm on vacation with my wife and our 2 other boys in Florida, and lawyer says, "I got great news. Seth's got released from prison." And I'm like, turn to my wife and I'm like, "That's the worst possible news we could have got. Great for Seth,
Yeah.
terrible for him ultimately." And he was released, and I remember, Mike, and this is I write about this in my first book. This one's for you, An Inspirational Journey Through Addiction, Death, and Meaning. But when he was released from prison, first of all, I was the only one to see him.
Hmm.
Nobody saw him. His friends didn't. Even my wife was very uncomfortable going to prison, which I understand that. I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but it's like, when he was an addict, he had all of his addict friends hanging out with him.
Hmm.
But when he went to prison, everybody bailed on him,
It disappeared.
except dad. I was there. Now, I went through an ego struggle myself. What is my, I was a successful financial advisor. I had a wealth management firm. I had a TV show for 6 years. I did radio for 17. I had this image. I was a Rotarian. It's like,
Hmm.
what are my people going to think? My son's in prison. How horrible. Now, when I think about that, how embarrassing as a man, as a dad, to make this about Jeff. How pathetic. How just absolutely pathetic I was. And it made it about me. And I missed many opportunities. And it's a burden. It's a cross I bear until I die, to try to relieve the pain, the weight of that guilt. It shifts. I'm not as self-critical of myself like I used to be. But anyway, Seth got released and he's in my garage. He had his couple bags of his personal possessions, and I had 2 boys in the house that are 15 and 13, and my wife. And he's like, "Yeah, Dad, I'm moving back in." I'm like, "No." I go, "That experiment's failed, Seth. It's failed. You're 23. You know the drill. Bad things follow people in the drug culture. I don't have any reassurances that you're going to be clean.
Hmm.
Prison isn't a reassurance.
Right.
Opportunity to become clean is heightened, but there's no guarantee when you're back into your circle that you won't get into it." And so I remember he was very upset, and he turned around and left my garage. And I said to him as I was going in the door, I said, "Seth, you need to quit drinking." And that's the last thing I ever said to my son, because within a couple months, he had met a girl that was into heroin. And unfortunately, he ran into a batch that wasn't heroin. It was fentanyl. And he was in his chair, needle in his arm, dead, in- on October 4th of 16 when I got that call. And so, it was the first time in my life where time stood still. I seen movies where people lose kids, and you just think to yourself, it's one of the things, stage 4 cancer diagnosis and car accidents and plane crashes are all things you see in movies, and you just don't think they're ever going to happen to you until they do. But the road
Hmm.
Seth was on was always an option. Prison, death, incarceration, poor relationships. Those are all like on the table when you're on that road. And so that was the first time that I really got floored. And then, yeah, I can continue the rest, but I'll pause if you got some questions for me and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to hit you upside the head. Obviously, I've not experienced that directly. I know some people that have, but I mean, it's one of those things that hit you upside the head. You probably weren't shocked, but it doesn't make it any easier.
No, I wasn't shocked. You're right. I actually, when the phone rang at 6:30 in the morning and I saw who it was coming from, I knew that on the call at this early in the morning on a Tuesday that it was something bad, but I didn't really think it would be that call, you know? And then what quickly went to my head was, how do I tell my wife that our son is dead? And how do I tell the 2 boys?
Right.
So I broke this down into, like, imagine you're in the ocean and you can see shore and you're trying to swim to get to shore. Well, you can either look at it as one big swim or small battles. Like, I got to get 20 feet, and then I got to get 20 feet. And that's how I was looking at Seth's death. Was I got to I got to make it to noon. I got to make it to dinner. I got to make it to tomorrow. And you compartmentalize and break down. Well, you should, I think. I think it's very beneficial to do so, because you'll get overwhelmed if you don't.
I agree. Yeah.
Big time, especially when something like that happens. You need to break it down literally into, what are you going to have? What are you going to eat? What are you going to drink? Who's the next phone call? You've got to compartmentalize this into something where you can control, because the problem with something like Seth's death, it was so far out of my control that the only thing I could control is what I was going to do the next 24 hours. Like, you know,
Yeah, because we're really bad about as a human species, right? We see this big mountain ahead of us and we get overwhelmed. So if you don't break it down in smaller gaps, you're just never going to make any progress.
So I was prepping myself. I called my dad and I said, "Hey, Dad, because my dad's 90 something years old, doctor. He's delivered babies. He's held a hand as people crossed over, and so he's dealt with all this." I told him, and obviously he was devastated. And I said, "So, Dad, what do I say to the boys? How do you tell them that their older brother's dead?" And as I found out later when I wrote my book, sibling bereavement is the number one thing for an adolescent to deal with for the rest of their life, losing a brother or sister, and specifically an older brother or sister. And this was my two boys, and they were 15 and 13. How impressionable a time is that? My dad said
Exactly.
some unbelievable words. He goes, "Jeff, I can't give you advice. I'll give you some guidance as a dad.
Hmm.
You like to fix things. You're a fixer. You're not going to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
You need to tell him the truth and you need to shut your damn mouth." It's exactly what he said. This coming from at the time, he was, 89 or 90, 88 maybe. And I thought, yeah, that's right, because all I want to do is talk my way out of this. I'm a salesman,
I would be
that's what I
the
did for
same.
years.
Right.
I'll fix it. You guys just sit there. I'll talk your way through it. I'll Dr. Phil it.
Yep.
And they came home. Ian got home from his golf tournament. Roman got off the bus and they sat on the couch. And my wife was to my right. And you could tell how distraught she was. The boys could sense the tension in the air. It was pretty clear that something bad had happened.
Yeah.
And I sat them down. I said, "Boys, I have some really bad news." And they both looked at me and I said, "Seth is dead." And I didn't say a word. And so after a few minutes, and it seemed like an hour, but it also seemed like 1 second, my middle son, Ian, looked up to me and said, "How'd he die, Dad? Drugs?" They
Yeah.
knew. They've witnessed all
They
this
knew.
stuff. Yeah. And I said, "Yeah, drugs." And then something miraculous happened, Michael. And I just, again, I'm agnostic. I think I shared with you my beliefs. I'm not really a big believer in the afterlife and all that.
Hmm.
I'm very spiritually connected. Like I believe in all this stuff that goes with, someone who's a believer in spirituality and humanity and those type of things. I'm a strong believer there, but I've never really bought into this man in the sky narrative just for me. And it never worked. And I've never had anybody from the sky come in and tell me I'm okay. It's like,
Sure.
just the contrary. I've normally been left floundering by myself. And so I don't pray or any of that stuff because it was always unanswered. So to me, it was kind of a waste of time. So where this came from, I have no idea where this came from. And so I stood up, I cleared my voice, and I looked over at my wife, and I had this idea in my mind, Michael, that this was like, I hate to say a halftime speech because this is obviously
Hmm.
bigger than any type of halftime speech you could give. But I call this, in this particular case, I call this a dad moment. This is,
Hmm.
this is, like, you get literally 3 or 4 in your entire lifetime, where these are moments where the next words out of your mouth will frame and dictate the quality of the rest of your life and your family.
Yeah. They
You
really
could have
matter.
son moments, you can have husband moments. I mean, you're going to get 5 in your whole lifetime.
Hmm.
Huge opportunities. And so I had this thing in me just like, okay, dude, it's go time, man. You want to be a dad? Here you go. What are you going to do? And so I stood up and I just instantly had this vision of this fork in the road. So the
Hmm.
two road metaphor popped in my head. I thought that's an easy one I can start with. So I said, "Boys, we have one of two roads to go down. We have one road, anger, despair, and hatred, and we'll become alcoholics and addicts ourselves. Or we have a road of love, hope, empathy, and compassion. And this can be the single greatest moment in our lives to make a difference in the lives of others.
Hmm.
I'm on the second road, and I ask you to join me." And I swear on a stack of Bibles, and this is coming from an agnostic, so this is heavy stuff. If I swear on a stack of Bibles,
Yeah.
I meant every word of it. I was going to show them super dad. I was going to show them the dad I wasn't for Seth. And that's not what happened. That's not what happened. And I'm happy to kind of share what happened next after this big, huge, heroic speech that I patted myself on the back. but it didn't happen that way.
Yeah.
But I'll pause
Um,
there for a second.
yeah. I mean, I guess, how did it hit the kids, right? I mean, a lot of folks don't know what it's like when you have to tell something to your kids, right? It can be
Yeah.
very brutal. And I know where you're coming from, because your hope is, okay, we're going to turn this into a positive. We're going to take this road and everything's going to improve. And of course, it's never a straight line, and it never goes that way.
Mhm. I thought it was very important to do less talking and more action.
Hmm.
My dad reminded me I wasn't gonna talk my way out of this.
Hmm.
So that's why I said, "I'm on the second road. I ask you to follow me." I opened that I gave them a chance to make their own decision here, what they wanted to
Hmm.
do. The reality happened was this. I called my business partner. Well, he obviously knew that Seth died because they're closest family to me on the planet. I said, "Hey, Brock, I need time off. The boys are struggling. My wife's struggling. I'm struggling. I'm going to stay home for about the next year." And I built the company up, worked 100 hours a week. It's like didn't need me anymore. We had plenty of money coming in and bills were paid. Things were good.
Hmm.
I said, "I need a year off to work on my mental health." "No problem, Jeff." Clients didn't care. Actually, our business grew when I left, which what does that tell you? That it was
Right.
self-sufficient without me, which is what every business should be.
What you want.
Yeah, that's what you want. And I didn't realize I had it until my hand was forced. But what really happened, Mike, is I stayed home for 14 months and got drunker than I've ever got in my life. And what you didn't know, and your listeners don't know, and people didn't know that didn't know about the story, I'd been an alcoholic since about 18 years old. So from 18 to 50, I was considered a high functioning alcoholic, 5, 6, 7 days a week. And I was competitive in my alcoholism. I was competitive in business. I was competitive in golf. I mean, anything I did, I had to be the best at it, or at least give the best effort. So if I was going to drink, I was going to be a damn good drinker on my block or wherever I could win in my garage
Yeah.
if I had to
Yeah.
win.
Sure.
And then what shifted was drinking became now a way for me to hide from the pain. I had no
Hmm.
pain prior to all this. I was just drinking because I liked to drink and I was a social drinker. My wife and I never fought. There wasn't anything nefarious going on. We just drank. That was what we did.
Hmm.
Worked hard, drank. But now the drinking became a coping mechanism. And that's when it became a problem. And so on December 24th of 17, I remember this like it was yesterday. I'm sitting at our condo in Florida. The boys are asleep. It's Christmas Eve, year and a half after Seth died. And my wife walks by me and she's frail and thin. And she looked 9 years older than me. And the day Seth died, she was 9 years younger than me. But she just transformed into this old person that was angry and hurt. And
Hmm.
alcohol to her became much more of a crutch than it was for me. So that moment, I knew I had to quit drinking. I couldn't quit when Seth struggled. And I literally took the glass of Sangiovese and poured it down the sink as I'm looking in the mirror going, "You pathetic piece of you know what? You coward,
Hmm.
you loser, you're worthless. You don't deserve children. You don't deserve a beautiful wife. You don't deserve anything in your life. You suck." That's what I'm telling myself. And as
Yeah.
I poured that alcohol down the drain and it kept circling, my attention, my desire to drink went with it. Never had a thought about alcohol since.
Which is not how it normally works for most people.
No.
That's pretty impressive.
But most people don't bury, as it turned out to be, half their family either.
Also true.
So I convinced myself that alcohol was a big reason for Seth's demise. I wasn't going to contribute to it. And whatever suffering I had with withdrawals or suffering from wanting to drink was laughable in comparison to the suffering of bearing a child. I mean, comical
No
on
doubt.
difference.
Right.
It's almost embarrassing to think there's any pull to alcohol after what I was through. But I really quit to help Prudence, Mike. That's why I quit.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, the idea for me to stop drinking didn't come from my personal problems I was having with alcohol. I had them, but they
Hmm.
just weren't manifested yet. They were there underneath, but they weren't there in front of me till I
Hmm.
saw Prudence. So I quit to support her, and that was on 12/24/17, June 29th of 21, one day after Roman, my youngest, turned 18.
Hmm.
Prudence died from alcoholism, grief, whatever. Her death certificate says alcohol, but it was suicide by alcohol. I mean, she did the epitome of drinking herself to death. She was 88 pounds in a wheelchair at age 46 when she died.
Wow.
Just
Yeah.
every organ gave out, everything. She became delusional, I would say paranoid, schizophrenic, just off the rails to the point where it wasn't fixable. It was more of just a matter of time. So her death, on the other hand, for her was freedom and liberation, because the life she had and was not going to get any better was a living hell. Seth's, on the other hand, was different because he actually was doing better as he got out of college.
Yeah.
And ran into fentanyl and had an accidental overdose. So then from 50 to 54 and a half, I lost half my family. 4 months later, we put our cat down, and the next day my mom died. And I'm in my closet now, Christmas of 2021, and I had enough. I was done. And I opened up my safe, took my Beretta out, sat in a spot in my closet now that holds a lot of reverence and respect for me when I walk by it today. It's a powerful spot in my closet. It's like when I move out, I want to cut out that carpet and take it with me, because I won the biggest fight I've ever had in my life, man. Sitting there for a weekend with a loaded gun in my hand, going back and forth, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, and I'd stop. I did that for 3 days, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's intense, right?
How I didn't kill myself it's the greatest accomplishment of my life. It's the greatest fight
Absolutely.
I've ever won. I say temporarily because I still struggle with thoughts of suicide. But I've learned to not identify with them as much, but respect them. Like, I'm not going to get these thoughts to never show up. I can lessen the frequency of them through meditation, breath work, and then psychedelics have been a big addition to me. Psychedelic assisted therapy, let me be clear on that. There's something powerful about a negative thought. Matter of fact, the Stoics used to call it negative visualization, where you would tuck your child in at night and have a quick thought that you were at their funeral. And that powerful thought, knowing that they're not dead, added more love and compassion to that moment. It's called negative visualization. It's a function of framing. And I'm not saying people need to think about their kids being dead. That's not what Stoicism was saying.
But we've all had that go through our minds at one time or another. You know,
Like, you get
they're
on a
not home,
plane,
and you're
and
like,
you get on a plane, you're like, God, I don't want to think about it crashing, but if it doesn't, I'm going to be very happy.
right? Yeah. It's
Same
happened to, I
thing.
think, most of us.
And so, Seth died, and that was it for me. I went off the rails, survived a weekend of suicide thoughts, danced with the devil, however you want to poetically frame it. Ended up doing what people do with attention deficit. I went out and bought a big RV, wrapped it in the Living Undeterred U.S. tour, went to LinkedIn, said I was going to raise $1 million, and took off on May 9th of 2022, the summer after Prudence died. And I drove with my cousin and my boys and a documentary team for a short while, 22,000 miles for 95 days around the United States.
It's a lot of miles.
Complete knee-jerk reaction. Complete, if I stop, I'll die. But I really wanted to do a lot of research. It's like it was a live, real-time research on the struggles that people are having. Like, if I go to a KOA and pull up the RV, how many people are going to come up and see this and Google and say, God, this guy, I want to learn about it. And as the tour took off, Mike, I met the most beautiful people, met the most hurt people. Met a gentleman at a talk I gave in Salt Lake City. I'll never forget this, the most impactful moment on the tour. I gave my talk. It was a suicide awareness event. I gave my talk, and a gentleman waited till everybody left, and he came up to me just in tears, shared his story. Here's a quick, brief story. Got divorced, had 2 kids. Everyone told him, hey, you need to get divorced, you need to get divorced. So he listened to a lot of his friends because he kind of wanted to half stay in the relationship because of the kids, right? Decided to file divorce and went to pick his kids up for visitation, and his ex-wife had shot them both and shot herself. And I'm sitting there going,
can't imagine.
Right. I'm like, dude, you just like speechless.
Right.
And people look at my story like, oh, that's terrible. And I hear that story. So there's always somebody that has it worse or better than you, wherever you go. And so I've
Agree.
learned to now make sure my story stays in its lane as a supportive foundation to advocacy and not some pitiful sympathy ploy. Like, oh, I want Mike to feel sorry for me, so I'm going to tell him about my story. I did that for a while,
Sure.
but it was horribly taxing.
And I think that's human nature.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know you don't call those losses tragedy. You call them preventable and predictable, right? And it's powerful. And I guess maybe talk about what you mean by it, what those words mean, and how you relay that to others. Because I imagine that became another part of your purpose and part of your journey in the RV.
If anyone ever tells me, Jeff, your story's tragic, I'm certainly accepting it. I'm not going to sit there and argue with them. But in my mind, I don't accept what happened as tragic. And I'll tell you why. Tragedy to me is those two kids getting shot by the mom.
Absolutely.
Tragedy is your dad getting Alzheimer's. Tragedy is your wife getting breast cancer. Tragedy is a drunk driver hitting your senior in college.
Mm-hmm.
Dying from overdose and alcoholism. Unfortunate, no question. But is it by definition a tragedy? To me, no, because it was preventable and predictable. Getting hit by a drunk driver isn't preventable unless that person drinking decides not to drive. But there's nothing you could have done that day to prevent that.
Exactly.
Getting Alzheimer's. There's research now. You can do things to kind of mitigate the risk. But if you're going to get it, you're probably going to get it. So it's like, I think I'm just trying to say words do matter for me. It's like, I don't really like accidental overdose. Seth was poisoned. He was murdered. But for me to go down that road, I couldn't do that. I never thought about searching for the drug dealer and putting him behind prison. I never thought about tightening up making fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction. I never went to protests. You know why I didn't do that? Because I didn't want to live in this space in the negative. It's necessary. We need to have laws. We need to put people behind, but I'm not the ambassador for that.
Yeah.
There's another moms and dads that's where they feel they can best add value. Mine was to be an advocate and not an activist.
Yeah.
You follow me? A huge difference in your approach.
Yes.
And also for your mental health. I think advocates, even though it's very, there's a cost of being a caretaker. There's a cost of advocacy. It's hospitalized me a couple times on this journey. But man, I can imagine what it's like to be an activist, protesting and yelling and screaming and spray painting things and angry
life.
Arguments on Twitter all day long. It's like, I don't have any desire to do that. Zero.
It's not good.
I forgave the drug dealer. I'm sure that wasn't the first time he sold drugs. He's probably either dead or in prison. You're doing that on the sales side. Nothing good's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Even fentanyl itself, ironically, when my dad had his stomach aneurysm and I was on the tour around the country, my dad almost died. He's alive now, which is amazing. I flew back from Boise and I'm in the hospital with my brothers and my dad's in ICU and I'm looking around and there's all these machines. Well, one of them, fentanyl. I'm like, how freaking ironic is that? The thing that took my son is saving my dad. And that's why I can't be mad at fentanyl itself.
Sure. It has its use.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, your RV journey, was that the beginning of what led you to creating Brightn? Was that just a step along the way? Tell me a little bit more about the connection.
Great question. It was the beginning because I set out to raise $1 million. The RV cost me almost $200,000. I paid for it myself. And I seed funded the initiative with a check for $25,000. So, I mean, I was all in. I was going to show everybody, if there's anybody delusional in this space that's willing to die, that's willing to go broke, that's willing to take their whole summer when everyone else is traveling and fishing and vacationing, and I'm in an RV driving 8 hours to go to an event when 4 people show up on my own money. Getting ghosted by TV stations, getting ghosted by radio shows. That happened about half the tour. The other half was amazing. Wow. I was on TV, I was on radio, we had advocates. I mean, I just kept going. And that's what living undeterred is all about. Just keep going, show up, keep going, show up. I don't know what I'm doing. Keep going, show up.
Right.
And at the end of the tour in Little Rock, Arkansas, I'm with my son, Roman, because my other son flew back. We had about a week left on the tour.
Mm-hmm.
I was in tears. I'd raised $40,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I wanted to raise $1 million.
Sure.
I spent a lot of my liquid money I had set aside for retirement initially.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it later went to the app. But as I'm sitting at the campfire, my son's like, Dad, what's next? And here's what goes through my mind. Failed as a dad, failed as a husband, failed as an advocate. What else can you fail at?
Yeah.
You're just an effing failure. That's what you are. You're a pathetic human being. In the meantime, I'm doing my podcast, I'm writing a book, I'm touring, and everyone thinks I'm this rock star, and everyone's getting me on podcasts, and they're, oh man, you're amazing. You're amazing. I'm like, no, I'm the most pathetic waste of a human that I've ever seen in my life. Story I was telling myself. My son's like, what's next? I don't know. I want to help kids. How's that? I want to help kids with their mental health. And he goes, well, Dad, you believe in harm reduction. Harm reduction is the idea of meeting addicts where they're at. Safe syringes if they're going to use needles, fentanyl test strips, free therapy, whatever you can do to help people that are struggling. Harm reduction is meeting them where they're at, not judging, none of that stuff. And my son goes, well, you want to help kids? Where are they at, Dad? They're on their phones. Roman goes, build an app. And when you have full-blown ADHD and someone says, chase a van, and you go, okay, and you start chasing it like a dog, the dog doesn't ever think and go, I'm going to chase this van. And I tell you what, if I catch it, this is what I'm going to do. A dog doesn't think that way. It does what? It just chases the van. Well, that's what I did.
Yeah.
I had no idea. We didn't even have it called Brightn at first. It was called Illuminate. I never built an app. I'm not a tech guy. I used to joke, I can't even program my VCR. My boys go, Dad, what's a VCR?
What's a VCR?
Yeah.
I know.
I have no tech experience. I'm a finance guy. I have no health background. I'm not a cognitive therapist. I'm not a psychologist. It's like, but I have something none of them have, or very few of them have, is that I would die for this.
Mm-hmm.
I committed myself when I started this. I want Brightn in the hands of as many humans as I possibly can in the world, preferably every human on the planet, or it's a nail in my coffin. There's no
That's powerful.
1 foot in the water. I'm going to cash in my IRAs, but I'm not going to mortgage my house. I'm not going to do this. No, it was everything I own is going into this. And if I run out of money, I'll find a way to sell my soul.
You're all in, literally.
Yeah. So that's what I started doing. So I hired Emily off of LinkedIn full-time to be my chief of staff, hired a team in DC. We interviewed 2. I had her pick. We hired a team in DC. And what started on a napkin, kind of on an idea at a KOA, I started building this idea of this mental wellness plan, kind of like a financial plan, but I would build one for the mental health industry.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the early genesis of Brightn. And so started going and going and going. And then about halfway through, my CTO, my current CTO, which is one of Seth's friends in high school, his name's Carson, startup guy, built apps before, as the universe does for me. When I'm at my last breath, literally sometimes, and I'm on my back and I'm looking up and I'm like, this is over. Something always happens. Again, as an agnostic, I struggle with that because I don't believe in a personal God helping me out, because that same God could have a baby drown in a pool. So I've always struggled with why it would pick me and let a baby drown. It's like, so I don't think there's a personal relationship where something's personally trying to help me.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe if you open your heart and you lead with intention of love and you have an abundance mindset, and I'm not talking abundance as in wealth, abundance of love. You reached out to be on the podcast. I want to be on the podcast. I want to share the story. That's an open mindset. Once you open your heart and you have a very non-fear and scarcity mindset, I think, I'm not saying the universe rewards you, but I think you're more receptive to picking up the signals of positive frequency. So I don't think just because I lost half my family, anyone owes me anything. The universe doesn't owe me anything.
Right.
But I owe myself to open my heart, open the frequency, and whatever good things that are floating around out there, I want to catch them and pull them into my life so I can make my life better, make the app better, everybody in my life better. And that's where I'm at today with what we've done with Brightn. And so
Well,
when Seth
yeah, let's just
died,
say.
when Seth died 3 weeks after he died, the original name was Illuminate. We were struggling with not liking that name. And I was at my office one day when I was leaving my previous company. I just retired and sold my shares, and I was sitting in an empty office, a couple file cabinets and stuff. And my team was on speakerphone, and we were going back and forth. I Illuminate, it's a clinical type. I don't like it. Plus, I think there was already a couple companies that had it. And I'm not lying. I'm sitting like this in my office. I'm by myself. There's 4 cabinets around, no pictures. Everything's moved out. It's late at night. Office is empty, like you see in the movies. I'm on
Mhm.
speakerphone talking to my team. And I look over and there's an ice cream cone drawn out in crayon taped to the corner of a file cabinet. And it just says Brightn. And Brightn is the name of Seth's daughter, who was born 3 weeks after he died.
Yes.
And it just beckoned me. And so she wrote that for Grandpa. At some point, she was in my office and she wrote it, and I put it on my wall. And now with everything else gone, I'm sitting there thinking of the name, and I look over at this ice cream cone and it says Brightn, and I'm like, out loud, I go, Brightn. And I can hear everyone go, huh? What? I'm like, that's the name. We're naming this thing Brightn. And again, I opened my heart and it showed up. And, I laugh now when I talk. She could have been Tina, Linda, Diane, Mary, but she's
Right.
Brightn. I mean, that is so unbelievably poetic how this is all coming around now. And so she'll be 10 in October. She's the love of my life. I named this initiative after her, making sure that I would not let it fail, because I failed her dad. I failed her grandma. I wasn't going to fail her. And that's why I'm committed to every ounce I have and more to making this work.
Well, it's a powerful purpose, right? It becomes your why. It's your purpose. And maybe tell us a little bit about what the app does or how it works and how it helps others.
Yeah. So it's AI powered, which is right now, if you don't have AI in this space, you're kind of DOA. It's a planning app. So we have journaling, mood tracking, opportunities. There's videos on the app. The more that you engage in the app. So what we're finding with our KPIs that are coming in our metrics is that the people that make it through the onboarding, we have a very low cost point. It's like $6 a month, 1 cup of coffee at Starbucks a month that you'd have to give up to work on your mental health. I mean,
Hmm.
what a sacrifice. Being sarcastic, obviously.
Yeah.
And
But cheap compared to everything else that's out there too.
well, what good is everything else if you don't have a good foundation?
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know why there isn't more emphasis. And we are heavily at Brightn talking about building your, well, I used to talk about the financial house. You can't go out and get fancy furniture and put a pool in until you build a foundation, right?
Right. Right.
So with investments, I always say to people, you couldn't go get crypto. You don't need real estate until you build your insurance and your wills and trusts and all that foundation first. Well, mental health's the same way. Mental health's the exact same way. Why would you go get a cold plunge? Why would you do all these, get a gym membership and all these things when there's other things you should be building first before you go into all those things? Those things will always be there.
Yeah.
But if you're
Right.
depressed and anxious and all that, going to the gym is a Band-Aid. It's not gonna cure
It
your
is.
depression. So the only way
Right.
to cure anything is to make sure it doesn't start in the first place. That's the only
Hmm.
way to really guarantee a cure of something like depression, which is technically non-curable because there's some people that debate that it's even a disease. Some people
Hmm.
think depression is just being sad for a long period of time. But we have to call it depression so we can file a claim, an insurance claim, and get reimbursed. So there's a reason why we have these names instead of allowing Michael to be very sad. We have to call him depressed. So again, I mentioned labels earlier. I'm trying to be that person out there in the field introducing the idea of changing our thoughts and how we pathologize every normal human emotion. That's really what
Hmm.
the Brightn story, the whole app initiative is empowerment. We don't have a system of broken people. We need to stop thinking that way.
Hmm.
We have people in a broken system.
Good
That's what
way of
we have.
reframing it.
I
That's
think that's the
accurate.
only way we can reframe it, because if you don't know me at all, Michael, and you heard me speak, are you looking at me and thinking I'm broken? I'm a broken man? I mean, you can answer honestly. I mean, most people probably do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the stigma, right? That goes
It's the
along
easy
with
bucket to put
people
me
that
in.
say, correct.
Right, because you're kind of told that if someone has trauma, has PTSD, was an
Hmm.
alcoholic, all these freaking labels out there. If you fit and check those boxes, well, then you're not normal. You're abnormal. Thus, these things are diseases. And the only way to cure that is to name it, to tame it. And how you tame it is through pharmaceuticals.
Hmm.
I've taken one
Yeah.
SSRI in the 9 years since Seth died, and I actually got off it. My app helped me decide to deprescribe off it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Now, I was on it. I hated the symptoms, man. I hated the symptoms. I was
Yeah.
tired. I slept really good, which is fine, but I had lack of energy, lack of focus. I was procrastinating a little more. So I deprescribed. I used the AI in the app to help me think it through, and I sent the results to my therapist, because you can book a therapist right on our app, and
Cool.
said, here is my thought process on why I want to get off Lexapro,
Hmm.
and armed him with tons of my journaling. Instead of going in going, hey, Dr. Mike, I'm thinking about getting off Lexapro and I've been tired a lot lately. What do you think?
Yeah. Then you have to have the whole conversation. Whereas now with the app, you can send the backstory, and he's already prepared when you come in to talk to
Yeah.
him.
And I show up and my mindset is convince me otherwise. That's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
You're limited to so many meetings in a month with a therapist. So why would you want to be there and take advantage of every frickin' second you have with that therapist? So the more you can use our app, and the more the AI gets to know you, we've trained the AI on empathetic listening, social emotional
Hmm.
learning, all the cognitive behavioral therapy type, protocols.
Hmm.
That's what I think I'm really proud of what we build is we're a prevention AI powered app, but we can provide support through our partnership with Open Loop, which is a telehealth company, prescription management, things like that we can do and still stay prevention.
Well, and there's not enough prevention out there, right? So it's nice to see you attacking it from that angle, because we need more of that. Same
Right.
with myself, right? Back in my earlier days, there was no prevention. Of course, I grew up in the generation where you just shake it off and then you don't talk
Yeah.
about mental health. But now it's becoming more common. People are talking about it every day, and we see it everywhere. The more we can do to try to prevent and catch it before it gets out of control, the better.
Here's the mindset of most people in this space. You have something called the DSM. When the DSM
Hmm.
breaks out all these different titles and labels, and that you can conveniently fit. Like if you took most people, I know everybody I know, if you filled out a questionnaire about the DSM, every one of us is going to have some disorder. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm probably manic depressive. I'm probably depressed. I'm probably anxiety. I'm probably sleep deprived. I mean, it's like, yeah, I'm probably all those things. So it's like in the last 30 years or whatever, 20 years or whatever, the DSM has expanded. Our definitions have expanded. We have different levels now of certain things. We have more
Right.
prescriptions. We have more
For sure.
ways to fight against the symptoms of anxiety, depression, and loneliness and those things. And the
Hmm.
only thing I ask you as a non-scientist, but just as a common sense person, is how has that been going so far for us?
Right. It
Right.
hasn't.
Right. So my analogy I use in my book. And by the way, my next book's coming out. I have not announced this publicly. So you're like the first one I've done on. It's called The Upstream Mind. And it's all about what I'm talking about is how we need to shift our attention. Where your attention goes, your energy goes. And right now our attention isn't going to
Absolutely.
prevention. It's going to do putting out the fires. And so, I was just thinking of ways that we could use AI to pattern recognition, to add memory context. So when you're
Hmm.
documenting everything, um, and then ultimately let people know that I didn't build Brightn to fix you because I don't believe you're broken. I built Brightn to empower you because I care what you're going through is a serious challenge for you. And I can
Hmm.
relate because I went through it. I went through it. And I just offer out, why not test out that thesis and see if we can show the people using the app are getting better, right?
Right.
Right.
Right. Why not you, right? Why not the person on the other end of this podcast? Like, why not you? You deserve it.
Yeah. And, it's like, again, I'm a big Stoic practitioner as well. And I know we're not going to have time to talk about my psychedelic experiences, but there's a lot of research and work, especially with ibogaine for veterans. But psilocybin,
Hmm.
I haven't done ayahuasca yet. Ketamine, obviously, it's not a plant-based psychedelic. It's, obviously I think it's, for lack of a better term, it's like horse tranquilizer in a way. But the reality is microdosing it, dripping it, things like that have shown what it did for me, Mike, is it quieted my ego, which is the very first thing I needed. That person
Okay.
that self-talk negatively all the time. I quieted that chatter because I gave myself some grace.
Hmm.
And it allowed me to actually like step outside of my experience and connect with that 6-year-old Jeff that's still in here
Hmm.
instead of the 60-year-old Jeff that's scarred and wounded and trying to survive versus the 6-year-old Jeff that's full of love, hope, and trying to thrive. And during those 54 years, it's a lot of time. There's a lot of damage. But the reality is there's also a lot of things in there that I had forgotten about that were beautiful. My relationships, my marriage, even though it ended bad, it was a great marriage. I couldn't have met a more loving mom and a wife than my wife. So it's like psychedelics allowed me to really see my life span in a different context instead of full of what's called recency bias. We tend to get hung up on
Hmm.
things that happen recent in our life. Well, what's happened recent in my life? Death and destruction. So it's not fair to the rest of my life. That wasn't that way. So psychedelics, meditation, diet and exercise. I don't drink. These are all things I'm trying to do. So when I get that next call, which again, the universe doesn't owe me anything. I could get a call today that someone I care about died. What am I
Right.
going to do? Right? Run to the bottle because now it's too much. Again, like I did in the closet, it was too much. My mom died. That was the last straw.
Yeah,
Trying to just not be so dramatic about my lived experience anymore, that death happens
it
when
does.
you're
And it's
60,
unavoidable.
right? When you're 10, 20, 30, it doesn't happen as much. And if it does, it's grandpa and great grandpa. As you
Yeah.
get older, especially your 50s and 60s, now it's your wife maybe, or your brother and sister. And when you get a little bit older, maybe it's your kids. In my case, it was the wrong order.
Hmm.
Son,
Yeah.
wife, mom, and my dad, who's 94, who statistically should have been the first to go out of all of them. He's
Right.
still alive and kicking, and I'm lucky for that.
Yeah. We can't control the order, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Now, the app, as we wrap that up, it's available for individuals as well as through
Yeah.
insurance and some insurances.
Well, we have two different ways you can purchase it. And for most of your people listening, if not everybody, it's going to be just on the App Store. So Apple and Android, you go in, you type in Brightn Wellness, it shows up. You click on it. We have a very easy onboarding. You can do a free trial. You can pay
Hmm.
weekly, pay monthly, annually. Our price point is low. It's like $6 a month. So for most mental health apps, it's very on par. If you're fortunate enough to be an employee at one of our employer groups, it's covered under your insurance plan. So, that's an area we're trying to expand in right now to get more employers because this is a big area in the benefit space. Because if you look at how much billions of dollars, I think it's 64 billion a year is lost on absenteeism and presenteeism.
Hmm.
Presenteeism is you still go to work, but you go to work in a bad headspace. So let's say, hey, Mike, you've made 2 years straight, you never missed, but the last 30 days you're bringing everyone else down. That's presenteeism. So absenteeism is a little bit of a false number because you could say your company has strong, low absenteeism rates. But I'm just curious to know too, is that because of threats of losing their job or whatever? Or are they really going there because they like to go there? you
Yeah. How
know?
engaged are they
Yeah.
really?
And presenteeism is that phrase. And then sick days is the other thing, how costly it is for employees to be missing work because they're, quote, sick, you know?
Yep. Absolutely. No, I appreciate the background on the app and availability, and $6 a month is next to nothing, especially compared to some of the things we spend our money on. A cup of coffee costs that much these days. So I'd like to talk about something we're both involved with,
Oh, yeah.
and that's the Real Mental
Yep.
Health Foundation. I recently became an ambassador. How long have you been an ambassador for it? And what are your thoughts?
Pretty
What
early.
can we share?
I met Sean on LinkedIn, like everyone meets him, and they had never done a conference. And so they were doing their first conference in New York 2 years ago or whatever. I
Hmm.
flew out there. Sean did a super job. The attendance was good. I'm sure it wasn't where he wanted, but it was good. Very high powered people there. Sean runs in some pretty big circles with well known people in the venture space,
Hmm.
business owners, startup founders, and stuff. I went out there very naive, kind of like, I don't know. I went out there like kind of to be a sponge and ended up meeting some very good people that are still in my life. And then last year I went back for year two. I attend all the monthly meetings, the speed
Nice.
friending thing he does, which I think is tomorrow again.
It
I do
is.
the walks, and there's a couple of groups like that out there now that are gaining some steam. If I wasn't doing the Brightn app, that would have been something that, and it still may be, where I would do similar to what Sean's doing, and start to work on a mental health community, because the value of it is obviously, no one person can accomplish what multiple people can do. And there's a scalability of an organization like that. And, not that I've really like closed any business deals. That's not why I joined the Real, but I'm only one phone call away for some pretty impactful people that really like what I'm doing in this space and really respect the story. And I think I've benefited a lot, but I want to make sure that I leave more than I take.
Hmm.
That's always like any group I join. If I can't leave more than I take, then I respectfully drop out of the group. If I feel like I'm just taking,
It's fair.
yeah.
Sure.
I think most people join any group. What's in it for me? And then when they
Of
don't get
course.
anything,
Yeah.
you wonder why they're not back in the group.
I've been there. I've done that.
I have two.
Absolutely.
I have two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of, I say they say normal, but it's kind of how we're developed through the course of our lives typically to,
When you're
to
in
think that way.
sales. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like, I like the group, the Real. There's another group with Steve Duke on LinkedIn who I just joined that. And that's another community that's really growing. He's out of London, I think. It's called the Hemingway Report or something. And that's got a lot of quality people. And I know you're in the Outlier Project, and I had a chance to kind of dip my toes in that pond about 2 or 3 years ago. Had a great experience with them as well. So what's the moral of the story? It isn't the group you're in. It's the fact you're in a group that matters.
The connection.
Yeah.
It's the sense of connection. The 80 some odd calls I've had this year with just people I never knew before
Right.
is so powerful. And I thought, I'm 51. Why did I not do this sooner? I was missing out on just knowing great people and having great conversations with no expectation whatsoever.
Wait till you're
It's been
60.
phenomenal.
Yeah. Then you'll say,
I'm getting there.
yeah, you'll say, I'm 60. Why didn't I do this earlier? It's like,
Right.
that's why when I see these questionnaires, like, well, what does a 60-year-old Jeff learn from being younger? And I'm like, I don't know if that's a dumb question or if it's the wrong question it should be asked, because w- obviously, having the benefit of hindsight, I would have been a really good gambler and a stock picker too.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't, to me, that's kind of an unproductive like conversation. I think what's more important is, what have you learned up to this point going forward that can use you to have the most productive life in the next 20 years of your life? Not what would you go back as
Yeah.
a 20-year-old Jeff and do differently? That's just
Right.
hypothetical. I don't waste time in. What's invaluable to me is go back to 20 years, 60, those 40 years. Man, that's a lot of tuition. That's a lot of experience there,
It
Next
is.
20 years of your life, Jeff, what are the three things you could glean from that? And then that to me is a more important conversation, because I don't like to live too far in the past. Yeah.
Oh, I get it. Um, Now, if someone is listening and they just experienced what you experienced, catastrophic loss, multiple losses at once, what would you tell them? How do you get through days 1, 2, and 3? What do you do next?
Yeah. And first of all, what kind of dog do you have?
Well, my Australian Shepherd has decided to make a presence on the show today.
I love it.
Kala is
Welcome,
down
welcome
there.
to the podcast. What's his name?
She's
Kala.
4 years old, and she hears a noise, and sometimes she starts barking.
Okay, I'll answer your question. Give her time to settle
Yeah.
down.
Thank you.
What would I do differently? For me, I think anybody in this situation, so somebody just got the call or somebody is dealing with someone who's potentially going to get that call. Man, that's a great question. I used to think to myself, people have to hit rock bottom, right? I used to think rock bottom was like a big thing. But in my case, rock bottom obviously was the worst possible outcome, and that's death. So I don't know if rock bottom is a convenient, answer anymore. It's kind of like what everyone says in the recovery community. Oh, they got to hit rock bottom. It's like, no, they don't. They don't have to hit rock
Right.
bottom. Matter of fact, today could be their rock bottom, and they have to think that way. They can't be thinking it's going to get worse from here, But I always tell people is this, if you're struggling, and I just did a podcast and I did a blurb on this that just posted today on all my socials. So you can follow me on Twitter and TikTok and LinkedIn and all that. But I made this comment about, you ought to be very proud of yourself, Michael, because up to this moment, you've survived 100% of the worst possible things that have happened in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You're batting 1,000, dude. That's not just the Hall of Fame. That's the GOAT. You're the greatest of all time human. You're batting 1,000. What makes you think you can't survive the next? And convince me why you can't.
Yes.
You're not going to win.
Powerful.
You're not going to win because I will convince you otherwise. Because you can, and you will, and you must. And that's I think what I have to tell anybody that's in the middle of the grips of the alcoholism, addiction, suicidal ideation. Maybe they were touched inappropriately as a child. There's all these things that all of us have had, not all of us, but many of us have had things happen in our lives that you can either, as the Stoics would say, become a victim,
Mm-hmm.
and these happen to you, or to become a victim and these happen for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lady come up afterwards one time after a talk and said, Jeff, how in the hell can losing your son and your wife be something that happened for you? I said, that's a great question. Here's my answer. It must. Because if it doesn't happen for me, it happens to me. And if it happens to me, I'm a victim. And I refuse to be a victim. So
Mm-hmm.
by just process of elimination, it has to happen for me. But I do ultimately choose that decision. Or, as the Stoics would say, it's possible to choose as you. And through advocacy and through my writing and through my podcast and through love and hope and inspiration, I think it chose me.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a religious person is watching this and saying, well, then God chose you. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Because I don't know what the hell I'm doing half the days. I don't know where this energy comes from. I don't know where that ember burns in the pit of my stomach. It's coming from somewhere. It's coming from originally from suffering and pain, but it's not the same anymore. The fire isn't anger anymore. It's something else. And I'm honored to be here in your podcast. I'm happy that we met.
Likewise.
Yeah, it's just show up tomorrow. That's my plan.
Yeah. The power of one more day. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ed Milet, right?
I have heard of Ed, yeah.
His dad was an alcoholic, and his phrase is one more day.
Yeah.
He said, son, I'm going to make it one more day without drinking. I'm going to make it one more day when his dad had cancer, one more day. And it's the same thing, right? Just keep going, because we are 100% successful at getting through our hardest days. We've told that to our kids before. Like, look, you've made it this far, 100% successful. What makes you think you're not going to make it to tomorrow? Because I guarantee you are. So
And that's Harmer Duff's mindset, because I talk to people all the time and I said, anybody that's in recovery, anyone that's been sober, okay?
mm-hmm.
They know the day that they began that journey. Mine was 12/4 of 17. That's the last time alcohol hit my mouth. What happens if I would have died the day before? Or the day before that? The day before that? I never would have made it to my sober date. So I think for anybody out there that has reached recovery, sobriety, whatever you want to call it, being clean, I guess, with drugs, there's always the day before when you weren't.
Yes,
So that's that
that's
one more
true.
day. That's where Ed's exactly right. We have to get to that one more day could be, and it is for many people, the last day that you ever do that thing that you're struggling with. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I completely embody that title of that book. It's like, and sometimes when I'm struggling, it's one more hour.
Yeah.
When I went through my bout
Right.
when I went through September to Christmas last year and I was hospitalized and I was having a complete mental health breakdown and considering ending my life, all these things that are now just, I look back and I'm like, dude, why'd you spend so much time? And I'd get up at 6 or 7, have my coffee, whatever, and I'd go back to bed till noon
Yeah.
because I was in the one more hour mindset
Yeah.
from September to, almost Christmas last year. It was half the week. And now I'm pitching the app. I'm closing deals. I'm keynoting. I'm flying around the country, but I can't get out of bed.
Mm. Yeah.
What will that mean? I'm not that smart to understand it, but here's the deal, man. I'm here today. I made it to today. I'm
Yep.
batting 1,000.
I say you're still 100% successful at
Right?
getting through those days
Yeah.
one at a time.
Yep.
Now, I know you've overcome significant loss with Seth, Prudence, your mom, all in such a short time, to building the app, helping thousands of people build resilience. What do you think's possible when we choose to, instead of staying stuck in tragedy, moving forward and getting through those tough days? What's possible?
I think anything's possible. And the reason I say that is the moment that you tell yourself a different story, you almost create a new universe for you. And if you want to tell yourself a negative story or a bad story, my guess is that universe will show up. Like that'll
Hmm.
be the road that's presented to you to follow, is a road paved with pain and suffering and fear, and where you've got this abundance mindset. It's not easy. Nobody's saying this is easy. And we live in this quick fix, 60-second mindset today. That road of abundance and love is hard. The road of hate and despair and that's an easy road, right? Being a victim is easy.
Right. Right.
Surrender to the fact that you're a victim. That's easy. It's hard work to be a victor and to
Hmm.
be on that road of, I don't want to say redemption, but to be on the road of improving your life through living an altruistic type mindset. Like, what can I do today to benefit other people? And sometimes it's not other people. When I go on a walk, I pick up garbage. I get back to my car and I'm loaded in garbage. I do it. I do it everywhere I go. I don't know why I do it. I figure if everyone did it, it's free, it's in abundance, it's easy to do. I have my hands. I know people that have lost their arms, people that lost their legs or in
Yeah.
wheelchairs. It's an
Sure.
honor to pick up someone else's garbage, man, because I can.
You can. Right.
I was going to not work out the other day, and I thought I could be in a wheelchair right now.
Yes.
You know how many
True.
times someone in a wheelchair would love to have the worst run on an elliptical?
Yeah, exactly. They would.
All of them would. So why am I running 6 miles on my elliptical when I can and it doesn't even
Right.
bother me?
Our problems become small at that point, right?
Yeah, it's perspective. And that's what I think Stoics have done a great job in reframing and perspective. And so whenever I'm in a position, I don't always succeed. Sometimes I just go back to bed.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I really try to reframe my life and push myself. And that's what I think keeps me still fairly young at 60.
And lastly, for people out there wanting to know more about you, where can they find you, your book? Where should they go?
Everywhere. I'm on LinkedIn. I have 2 profiles, Brightn, which is spelled Brightn.
Hmm.
And then I think it's Jeffrey Johnston. And then on Facebook, I think I have Living Undeterred, Brightn, Jeff Johnston, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. So yeah, if you go to the website,
Hmm.
it's brightenapp.com. I think
Okay.
all my contact stuff's on there. So yeah, if you can't find me, you're just not trying very hard because I'm all over social
Yeah.
media. I don't have lots of like millions of followers, but I make a lot of content.
Sure. Okay. Well, and I'll make sure to include all that in the show notes. And I've got to apologize. The sirens went by, and
He's doing great. He's doing
she's
his
on a
job, man.
roll
He's
today.
protecting you from harm.
She is. Yeah, I
She.
feel so safe. Yes, I feel safe. She has her moments. She's usually not this loud and vocal, so maybe somebody came to the door. But
It's all good.
I do appreciate you joining today. Your message is important for others to hear, and to heal. It's a great story of recovery for you to utilize your message to help others, which is never easy. And I know it's a continuous battle. And I'm grateful for you to be here to share your story and help others.
Yeah, I'll close with one quote that I always use when I open a talk and I close a talk. And it's a
Hmm.
phrase, that's become like my DNA. And here's the phrase: purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. So purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. So what I tell people, make whatever you're doing personal, fill it with passion, and it will become your purpose.
I like it. That's important. And we're going to include that in the show notes as well. A lot of wisdom shared today, and I really do appreciate it. What I'd like everyone to take away from today is if you're struggling with addiction, if someone you love is struggling mentally or with addiction, just remember Jeff's words. It is preventable, it is predictable. There are steps that we can take. It's not too late. Help is available, recovery is possible. It's a different approach that more of us need to take every day. We need to build connection,
Mm-hmm.
have conversations, and help each other.
Mm-hmm.
Tragedy implies helplessness. Preventable and predictable implies that we can do something about it, and we can all do just that. And again, if you're struggling right now, please call or text 988, the suicide crisis hotline. And if it's an emergency, call 911. You matter. Your life matters, and you do belong. Please make sure you share this with others because the message is important that we need others to hear. Subscribe to the podcast, leave a review. We really appreciate your support. I'm Mike Orlowski. This is Mojo Motivation and Mental Health. Kala, thanks you for joining the podcast. Choose happiness, choose evolution over tragedy, choose to be extraordinary, and get your mojo back. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.